Hello and very warm welcome to the Arise interview. 60 minutes of big questions about the big stories from the news and beyond with fresh insight and critical analysis. I am Christian Ogdo and we're live in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Coming up in the next hour, the body of close associates of President Muhammadu Buhari and Second Republic Minister Mallam Ismaila Isa-Funtua, who died of cardiac arrest, has been laid to rest at the Gudu Cemetery in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. The reputable business mogul was a life patron of the Newspapers Proprietors Association of Nigeria and chairman of Bullet Construction Company. He died at the age of 78. Today, we'll look at the indelible legacy of Mallam Ismaila Isa-Funtua. And later, the unending drama in the Niger Delta Development Commission has turned into what some people have described as a show of shame. An absurdity in governance as more financial infractions and malfeasance were uncovered by the House Committee on NDDC during its probe. In his testimony, the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs Ministry, Godswill Akpabio, said the agency under his watch parceled several contracts to members of the National Assembly. And contrary to the provisions of the Code of Conduct for Public Officers, the debate about the administration of the NDDC didn't just start right from the setting up of the Interim Management Committee. Stakeholders have always raised concerns about its legality. But can a house built on shaky foundations withstand such intense heat? The unending saga of the NDDC and the forensic audit. Coming up in a moment. Tributes poured in as life patron of International Press Institute and Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, Mallam Ismaila Isa-Funtua, was buried in Abuja. Isa-Funtua, who died of cardiac arrest on Monday night, was buried according to Islamic rites, and funeral prayers were held for the late veteran media entrepreneur at the Gariki Mosque in Abuja. He was buried at the Gudu Cemetery, and his burial was attended by eminent personalities from far and wide.
A rare gem which is irreplaceable. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant him Al-Jannah Firdaus. He has done so many things to so many people, and he has been of tremendous assistance to the youth and also to some of us politicians. Whenever we are in collision course with each other, he always comes in as a reconciliator, as somebody who pacifies, the aggrieved people, as somebody who tried to bring people together.
Ismaila Isa-Funtua was a titan across many generations. He was a minister under Shehu Shagari's government. He was a confidant of the Babangida government. He was a point man of the Buhari administration. He was a pillar behind MK Abiola, for whom he almost was targeted by Abacha. He's a strong friend. He stands by his friends, stands by the people, and he was a great philanthropist, looking after the poor and the needy across the board and across Nigeria. He will certainly be missed. We have lost a titan, a pillar for press freedom, not just in Nigeria, but around the world.
This is indeed a monumental loss, but we have to take solace in the dictum that is from God he comes and to him he shall return. And Alhaji Ismaila Isa Isa-Funtua has contributed immensely to the development of this country, particularly journalism and then industry and even governance.
Very warm tributes there from Nigerians from all walks of life. And for more on this, I'm now being joined by Mallam Garba Shehu, who is a Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity to Nigeria's President, Muhammadu Buhari, and from Lagos by Chief Segun Osoba, who is the former Governor of Ogun State. Very warm welcome, gentlemen. Let's begin from Lagos with Chief Olusegun Osoba. As a nationalist, what or how will you remember the late Ismaila Isa-Funtua when we talk of Nigerian politics? Chief?
Well, he will be remembered as a man who believed seriously and passionately about this country. He will be remembered as a man who built bridges and had connections and relationship with highly placed people across tribal line in this country. And he will be remembered as a man who used these connections and influence to try as much as possible to find a consensus on the issue bedeviling the political development of Nigeria.
Flowery tribute there from you, Chief. And if I may ask again, his politics was very inclusive. Like you said, it cuts across, you know, different strata of society, building bridges. What would you say about that too?
Well, as I said earlier, I have known him for over 40 years. We were like a kitchen cabinet then in the Babangida's administration. And his vision was, although I knew him at a distance that when he was Minister of Water Resources briefly under the President Shehu Shagari's government, he displayed energy as somebody who wanted the best for Nigeria. He has the character of a man who is passionate. When he believes in something, he goes for it frontally. He can be brutally frank. He's not pretentious. As a result of which, he takes very strong views on issues. But at the same time, he's one man who recognizes and respects the feelings and views, dissenting views to his own opinion.
All right, Chief, we'll come back to you during the course of the program. Let's speak to Mallam Garba Shehu, who is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity. The late Mallam Isa-Funtua is regarded as a very close ally, associate of Mr. President. This must be very trying times for Mr. President, you know, losing two great friends, great political soulmates in less than 4 or 5 months.
That is absolutely correct. Mallam Ismaila had a long-standing relationship with the president. It predated politics. Some of the ties run in their families. But more importantly, in politics, Ismaila had done his own politics, the NPN, as the Governor Osoba has just said, and all of that. once President Muhammadu Buhari threw his hat into the ring, Mallam Ismaila abandoned previous political associations and stuck to the president and supported him all the way in all of the contests that he ran until eventually he made it to the State House as a rock. Mallam Ismaila had access to the president and he used it to the good of the nation. In situations of power, there are few people who can confront a certain president and tell him the truth to his hearing, or prime minister, or whoever they are. Mallam Ismaila had the capacity, had the sincerity and the forthrightness to say to the president and even to those before him his mind on matters of the day, but more importantly, reporting to them the correct reading of the temperature, political temperature in the country. Leaders need to know how it is out there with their publics. Mallam Ismaila was one of those who served as agents of the public around power. So he was that remarkable.
And very reliable too. I mean, with the kind of, confidence reposed in him that close to power and the rest. Mr. President truly must have found him very reliable and conscientious.
This is because Mallam Ismaila was not a pretender. He never was pretentious in his ways. Mallam Ismaila would walk on eggs, knowing full well that the eggs will break. But if he knew it was the right thing to do, he would do so. So therefore, he was never afraid to say his mind on given issues before whoever it is. He was forthright and sharp. So therefore, and the people who like to hear the truth, like President Muhammadu Buhari, without any embellishments, yes, they should like to listen to people like Mallam Ismaila.
And even as close as he was to the president and to the corridors of power, he never either abused it or want to put himself in a position of such power.
No, he stood there as a, for instance, coming from the media that he did, as a publisher, he still has an interest in some media houses. As a member, life member of the board, of the executive board of the International Press Institute, as a life patron of the newspaper Proprietors, he maintained contact with media top to bottom. He was interested in NPAN, in Guild of Editors, in NUJ. Yeah. And he stood there as an arbiter. I will call him maybe an unofficial interlocutor or ombudsman of sorts. He spoke for the government to the media, and he spoke to the government on behalf of the media. Fantastic. So he really was that trusted, yeah, and he did it exceedingly well.
Okay, Madam Garba Shehu would go on a short break. When we return, would look more at his media foray in Nigeria. You're still watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead. Stay with us. You're welcome back to the Arise interview. I still have with me here in the studio, Mallam Garba Shehu, the Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity to Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari. And from Lagos, I have Chief Segun Osoba, a former governor of Ogun State, and of course, former president of the Newspapers Proprietors Association of Nigeria. Well, Chief, it was indeed you that handed over the status of authority to the late Mallam Ismaila Isa-Funtua Mama. You want to tell us, about the kind of, or how revolutionary was his brand of journalism when he made a foray into establishing the Democrats? Chief?
Well, as I said earlier, Mallam Isa is a very passionate character. I actually handed over the newspaper Proprietors Association to Chief MKO Abiola when I was going to contest for the governorship of Ogun State. But that handing over was acrimonious in the sense that Mallam Isa at that point insisted that he must contest against Chief MKO Abiola in Abeokuta because he believed that he would do better. And we had agreed then that I will hand over to Chief MKO Abiola in a consensus manner. When the whole thing became acrimonious in Abeokuta in 1989, we decided to lock him and MKO Abiola in the hotel room at Gateway Hotel in Abeokuta to go and sort it out. When they came out, apparently Abiola wisdom prevailed. He came out and said the chief had told him that he is younger. His own newspaper, The Democrat, is younger to his own Concord, and as such, it should be this time to let him, MK Abiola, be. And that was how he decided to withdraw from having a contentious contest with Chief MK Abiola. And there and then, I then took everybody to The Hague for the International Press Institute Annual Conference, on which I was then the executive director, executive member of the board for Africa. And it was there we brought in Ismaila Isa to be a member of the IPI. Unfortunately, he then became the next president after the incarceration of Chief MKO Abiola. That was the sequence. But as I said earlier, is a man, when he believes in a cause, when he believes in a friend, he stands firmly and can be very tough. You may not like him for his bluntness. He can be very, very direct and blunt. That is his character. But he believes that his conscience is his God and that he owes nobody any explanation as to his holding tenaciously to whatever he believes in. That again is Ismaila Isa's character.
Chief, we'll come back to you again. Let me turn to Madam Garba Shehu to, shed more light on the brand of journalism the Democrat Mallam Ismaila practice. In one way or the other, he started the revolution of the broadsheet publication alongside the Triumph, like you were saying, almost simultaneously. That's quite an innovation at that time.
His Democrat newspaper came like a big storm because it is very rare that a newspaper house would commence both weekly and daily editions simultaneously. Within 1 month, he had started both two. I was at the launching of Democrat at that time. He had a fleet of brand new, 30 brand new pickup of Peugeot 404 cars. And he had everything. And so therefore, a Democrat, it didn't take time for Democrat to be felt all across the nation. And he hired people from all across the country. His editors, they never came from his own state or his religious affiliation or ethnic. No. He wanted the best, and he allowed them a lot of freedom. And I think this is where probably he picked much of also his mediatory role, because The editors exercised freedom in full. And the paper then, of course, got into trouble too many times with the government, with advertisers, and all of that. And Mallam Isa's role then was that he mediated conflicts for most of the time. But editorial content was entirely the business of editors.
Is a man of, or was a man of very sound mind, principled, that's Chief Osoba said, and the rest. He didn't care who ox was God when, particularly during the time he was publishing and the rest. And even before his death, he was still supporting several media houses in publishing.
His mind had never left the media. In any case, he still has interests, though not really large, in the media, and his interest continues to be there. And I recall that when this incident involving Shore, the presidential candidate of AAC, and the publisher of Sahara Reporters, came, and the arrest and detention and all of that, Mallam Ismaila called me and he said I must facilitate a meeting for him with the Secret Service, because in his mind that although he got into trouble because he was a candidate of political party and was doing something political, he said people will abuse us as leaders of the media in the country for not doing anything. And he called, literally forced Sam Amuka, come along. And the publisher of this day, Nduka Ogbaibiana. And he led the three of them to a meeting I set up with the Secret Service. And after our meeting with the Shore, I remember Chief Nduka went into an inner room with the Shore and they had a closer interaction, came out. It seemed all resolved. We left that place believing that all Shore needed to do to clear all of this mess was for his lawyer to come on board. And I think this is where things fell apart. But Ismaila Isa's commitment was such as this. He just felt once it affected the media, he interceded with them, with government. And I tell you that he didn't work for the Nigerian government, but his influence he had made available to the Buhari government, because he would speak up an issue with any publication in the country. And because he was listened to, it has brought reprieve and relief a lot of the times to the government that President Muhammadu Buhari leads.
He was a man of the people.
Oh, he really was. Both sides.
And they brought both sides together too.
Exactly. That was him. Yes.
Okay, we'll talk more about Mallam Alhaji Ismaila Isa-Funtua, of blessed memory now. But let's just quickly have the thoughts of Chief Segun Osoba on part of the media foray and how he used the media either as a stabilizing factor for governance and leadership. Very quickly, Chief.
Well, his first love till he died was the media. And as such, he never shied away from intervening at the appropriate time, even if he has to even use his own resources to support the media houses. But it is not without the incidences of major disagreement. I'll give you an example. We were to hold the election for the presidency of the Guild of Editors in Ibadan.
Chief, I'm very sorry. Maybe we'll just pause briefly here. Let's just take some messages. When we come back, you continue on the line of thoughts that the submission you're trying to make, Chief. Okay, we're going on a very short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the discussion. Stay with us. You're welcome back to the Arise interview. We're live in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. My name is Christian Ogodo. Thanks for staying with us. I still have with me Mallam Garba Shehu, who is the Senior Special Assistant in Media and Publicity to Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari. And in Lagos, we have Chief Segun Osoba, who is a former Governor of Ogun State. Chief, you were trying to make a submission on, a certain time when Mallam Ismaila Isa-Funtua you were going to have a meeting with the Guild of Editors. You want to continue on that line of thoughts, please?
I was saying that we were going to select a successor to Gbenga Adefaye as the president of the Guild of Editors, and the conference was in Ibadan. Mallam Isa, before the conference, contacted Sam and said his own position was that we should zone and rotate the presidency. Of course, Sam called a meeting of we elders of the profession, Reku, myself, and a few others. And we insisted that journalism has no color, no tribe, and that anybody who's going to be president must be on merit. Well, as usual, Mallam insisted on his own position. He held on tenaciously. And we went to Ibadan, and former MD of the Nigeria, Mallam Muhammad, now National Commissioner for INEC, was the returning officer. And the election was fiercely fought, and the current head of media to the president, Femi Adesina, emerged as president. Well, as usual, Mallam Isa-Funtua, as a Democrat, which his paper is, and in his character, accepted the outcome and cooperated fully with the administration of Femi Adesina. Again, that is part of Mallam Ismaila Isa's character.
To know. And let's look at some of the development strides he made, particularly in business, in construction. A greater number of some of the government structures in Nigeria's capital city, Abuja, are, credit to his construction company, Bullet Limited, International Limited, and the rest. Particularly, you have the Bullet House in Abuja, which is the phase 2 of the Federal Secretariat. What are your thoughts about his business foray in the country and beyond?
I can tell you that I, as a friend, whenever I'm in Abuja, it takes personal interest in details of whatever construction business he's doing. And he used to take me around to see some of the edifices that he was building. I remember some time ago, he took me to go and see years ago, the then External Affairs building. One thing that I would say about him, apart from getting involved to the minutest details of all the constructions he was involved in, he has this responsibility for social and community responsibility. And if you pass through some of the major areas in Abuja, not far from the headquarters of the Nigerian Police Headquarters, you will see a garden which he maintained and is still maintaining before he died for years. He had all this kind of thing as part of his own social responsibility and community development responsibility for the areas in which he's involved in. That again is part of his passion.
Trophy. Would talk more on that. Let me come to Mallam Garba Shehu. Some people would have thought that, with his influence in government, his closeness to presidents, even before the emergence of President Muhammadu Buhari, that he would have used all this, to garner the kind of wealth he garners. But his philanthropy, seems to, like Chief Osoba was trying to say, knows no bounds at all, knows no tribe, knows no religion.
Well, that is classically Mallam Ismaila. He never took undue advantages. He had strong relationships with the people in government, but even before this administration, as Chief Osoba had said, he had been strongly associated in a relationship with President Babangida, and even the late Abacha to some extent because of his friend, the late Abidina Kumasi, and all of that. But it was in Arise Television. He gave an interview some months ago after the death of Mallam Bakari, and he said it all. When they said that he was even that he clamoring to be chief of staff or to do this and that, and he said, well, he wasn't being bombastic about it, but he said he was too big to work for government. He was an employer of hundreds of people, and liked to keep going that way.
Close to 10,000 workers.
So therefore, that was him. And you know, he this thing about he was like a godfather or guru in the media. If you needed to be president of NPAN, president of Guild NUJ, you don't kowtow to him, but you would be better off with Mallam Ismaila on your side. And his resources were available to all. He lavished money on me, on people, freely, without any precondition. It came from his own heart. And they mentioned that Chief Osoba did with that slight disagreement they had in Ibadan, and I happen to have been there also, was also the fact that unofficially the guild had some form of rotation between North and the South.
Yeah.
I handed over the guild myself to the late Remi Oyo. Remi Oyo, we looked around, there was nobody from the North to take over. Benga Adefaye took over, did his 2 terms. When he finished, and then all of these things. You
thought that it should go to the
Well, I think that was
now.
the sentiment. But the thing is that the northern leaders of the media themselves sat down and said, look, they looked around, they can't find a better candidate than Femi Adesina at that time. And they told him, Femi, go and run for this office. The problem arose because at the last minute, when Femi had gone in, expended his resources, and garnered nationwide support, then they said they now had another candidate. And so it didn't fly, because as a matter of honor, most of members stuck with Femi because in the first place, he never wanted to do this thing, dragged into it, and then they wanted to, leave him
hanging there.
Yeah, so that was how it was resolved. Okay.
And when you look at the skylines of Abuja, just like Chief Osoba was saying earlier, it's like you find the details of Mallam Ismaila Isa, written on some of the projects. Look at the Ministry of External Affairs, for example. It's a wonderful.
It was an iconic structure they had put in place, but as Governor Osoba also did say, I think that most people will remember him more for the landscaping of that Ahmadu Bello way.
Yeah.
He had maintained it all the years, and lush green grass grew there, maintained by nobody but him. These are jobs for municipal authorities, but he took it upon himself to do it. It's one of the loveliest places to drive through in this city.
It is indeed very lovely. We hope we'd have more Nigerian businessmen, take up such challenges as time goes on. Let's return to Chief Osoba in Lagos again. Chief, I mean, this must be very trying times for the journalism family as a whole, whether the Guild of Editors, whether publishers, or even the Nigerian Union of Journalists as a body. It's a big loss.
Well, it came as a thunderbolt. It came too shockingly. He called me a few days ago, and looking back, he's been calling me over and over in the last few weeks to just check on me, say hello to me. And only yesterday, he had lunch with his son-in-law. He told that one he was going to do his physiotherapy with his the man in charge of his back. And he got there and complained of having a headache. And He drove himself down. As usual, he's a man who enjoys the company of his friend and drives himself. I remember, again, we went for the Guild of Editors conference in Kaduna. Sam, myself, and he told the driver to go into the backup car, and he drove us all the way from Kaduna to Abuja, myself, himself, and Samamuka, because he wanted us to just have a good time together. So he drove himself down. So it's shocking to all of us in the media to just find him go away so suddenly. Well, in retrospect, I thank God he did not become a vegetable. People that God loves, God makes them not to suffer. Well, we can say, well, he didn't suffer, he died peacefully, but again, how do you want to say you are going, you'll be happy to lose a friend, a great friend, a loyalist who is loyal to his friend, who is loyal to his cause? It's very, very, very painful. And we'll miss him because it is too sudden. No evidence of sickness, no complaint of anything. So we are still to recover from that shock. Since yesterday, my wife and I, it has not been the same because his wife, my wife, and I, and all of us used to go around the whole world for the annual International Press Institute conference. We've been to so many places together, Austria, Bulgaria, US, everywhere. And the program is such that we men, when we are discussing media, they have program for our wives. So it is beyond even the media loss to me. It's a big family loss. My wife and I have been looking at our album, series of photographs that we took around the whole world. Ismaila was a colossus who dominates his environment. As such, he will surely be missed. His presence, his awesome personality is a big loss to all of us.
Yes, indeed. The Colossus has really gone home. In the southwest, they'll say, and Iroko has fallen. Let me turn to you, Madam Garba Shehu. You just had the kind of recall memories and the pain and shock Chief Osoba is going through. How is Mr. President taking this?
Well, he's taking it with the equanimity because I mean, these are matters that you cannot hold back. And the sense that his time is up and he has to go. And so we have lost him. God knows best. However, it is sufficient to restate again that he will be missed so intensely. Because leaders, they need to be told, to be served the plain truth. And this is a country where sycophancy is an industry. I recall the story of a former government secretary to government of the Federation. He was asked, what advice do you give to the president? He said he waited all the time for the president to say, jump, and he will ask, how high? So people like Ismaila had served public good by being there around leaders and telling them, this is what your followers, this is the public's thinking on the given issues of the day. Yeah. He had given his best to the country.
Yeah. Thanks so very much, Mallam Garba Shehu, for finding time to join us on the Arise interview to pay tribute to a great colossus, a business mogul, a media entrepreneur extraordinary, the late Ismaila Isa-Funtua. And from Lagos, Chief Segun Osoba, former Governor of Ogun State, thanks so very warmly for joining us to pay a last tribute to Mallam Isa-Funtua. You're still watching the Arise interview. We've got more still ahead. Stay with us.